I guess the first thing, just starting off, is it's kind of nice, exciting to be here in November and actually have a shot. Have a chance to play for something that could be very rewarding. With that said, it's obvious we have to get better, but I think we're capable of getting better, and that's been the whole emphasis with recruiting during the open date, and also just football-wise. I think just a almost maniacal, approach on just techniques and urgency of technique individually. Because if you are going to improve, you're going to improve by each player just getting better fundamentally and technically, and that's really where we are. We need to play better. We need to play more consistent. But the simplest way to put it is each player has to take just individual maniacal pride in playing better and playing more consistent. So that's kind of where we are. It's been a while since we played. Hopefully we can take advantage of that. But, we got a shot. Obviously we'll be, as I said a couple weeks ago, we'll be the underdog in these next 4 games, I would imagine, which is fine. But I think we're in a position to maybe have our best shot down the stretch since we've been here. So excited about the challenge, looking forward to it, and just anxious to see if we can improve here as the season, comes into the last month. So with that, Rick, you want to start it off?
The players that I talk to tell me they think about a bowl game, they talk to each other about a bowl game. They sometimes bring it up unprompted. Is there any concern on your part that maybe they're getting ahead of themselves with
No.
4 games left?
It's going to be what it's going to be. We can do all the talking we want, but human nature is human nature, and I'm sure all of you guys are the same. We're all the same. In fact, I really started off our meeting Monday when we got together again after the open date about saying, there's a lot of ways to look at this. Maybe the simplest way is to look at it and say we're 0-0. Because we're 4-4, we're 2-2 in the league. In reality, we're 0-0. With 4 games left. 3 of them at home, and we need to win 2 of those games to get to a bowl game. And then I said, okay, now let's get to what really matters. Back to that just urgency of technique, So big picture, you may have some scenarios in your mind, but at the end of the day, it's getting down and taking care of your little technique and fighting for your little gap and, your little yard. I talk to our players a lot about, in this big world, the one thing that you fight for is your little yard and your little family and the pride in which you do things in your little space. And whatever billions of numbers the population of this world, it's the one little thing that you can control. And that's what this all is. So there's a lot of talk about big picture. To me, it comes down to that one little thing that we control, and that's my little gap and my little technique. And that's what we really try to emphasize. So I think it's human nature to look at numbers, look at big picture, look at the record, all those things. But at the end of the day, for us to get better, it's the simplest of things, which still sometimes has been the most evasive of things for us. That's just individual development of players and individual development of you taking care of your little yard right there. So maybe I'm simple-minded, but that's what it takes for us to finish here strong.
How many guys have you gotten back that were nicked up, and how much did we count?
I can't talk about injuries. I understand most coaches in the country now say, well, we don't talk about injuries. No, I don't think there's anything to hide with that. We've got 3 defensive linemen that if we played today probably wouldn't play or couldn't play. Fortunately, we don't play till Saturday. They have taken some reps. They are on a path to hopefully be able to play Saturday. But if we played right now, Garrett Hughes, Kenny Okonkwo, and Chris Lee, I don't think they could go out there and play a live snap in a game. But they are making progress. Cody Baker, the freshman, he's like a lot of guys everywhere in the country. He's nicked up, but he's still going. But, when it comes to those 3 defensive linemen, if we'd have played this morning in practice, full speed, full on, I don't think they could have survived. One note, Patrick Reed, You guys may have noticed, maybe you didn't notice, the last few weeks he hasn't played. He's going to have a non-football medical situation done. He's out for the season. We expect him fully back in January, but it's a non-football kind of related procedure that he needs to have done. He's going to have it in the next week or so, and then, I think, knock on wood, he'll be back in January 100%.
From a coach's perspective, in your eye test, is this team better than the one you had last year at this time?
Our team?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think without a doubt. Without a doubt. Again, we have a few more numbers. We're a little different team. We become a big blitz team, pressure team on defense, which is what we've always kind of wanted to do. And I think we can continue that and get better at that. So I feel pretty good schematically where we're headed on defense. Offensively, we're a little bit not quite as identity as we've been, and we've talked ad nauseam about the reasons why. I do think we're a better team. I do think we're a better team, and I think we're better prepared to face what we're 4-4 in November. So if you just want to look at the bare numbers, we're better. What we signed up for is coming. We've got 4 really good Mountain Division teams to play, and 3 of them at home.
You feel like you guys are on the clock for those games because those are the last part of the opportunities. Like this is it.
Yeah, they don't. They don't give out participation trophies at our level. So we have had some opportunities. We had an opportunity when you look at it going to Nevada. We had an opportunity. Going to San Jose State. Probably had an opportunity with Tulsa at home, if you really look at it. Those opportunities start to run out, and that's why we have to, for us to win and for us to get what you might call a signature win around here, we have to improve. And the only way I know how to do it is individually. I think big picture-wise, we're pretty good. I talked to our players about that, pretty good identity. We go to class, we lift weights, we have good meetings, we have good kids. Now, how do we play better? How do we play better? And it's each guy individually playing better, urgency of technique, bottom line.
When you talk about getting better, is the flip side, do you think it's fair to say this team hasn't played well enough in the first 8 games to get to 6 wins?
Yeah, because, if we had 5 wins right now, certainly the picture would look a lot better. Or if we had 6 wins right now, certainly the picture would look better. But, you are who you are. We've played at times as capable maybe as we're good at playing for where we are right now. I wouldn't look back and say we just played poorly. We are who we are as we continue to try to grow and build. It's interesting, not to get off on something else, but I looked at Frank Beamer, and I think Frank Beamer was 24 or 22 and 40 his first 64, 65 games at Virginia Tech to get that thing built. So I think it's important to know who you are. I think it's important to know where you are, continue to be realistic, and we are kind of what we are. I wouldn't say we've underachieved or we've overachieved. The reality is we're 4-4, and we fight and scratch and claw for everything we get, and there's still not much margin for error, and we continue to try to get better. So, I don't know that we've underachieved or overachieved. We're 4-4, and that's probably about what we deserve to be. I can't look back and say, boy, we should have just beat Tulsa's butt, or boy, we should have just beat Nevada's butt, or we should have just beat San Jose. I kind of knew going in it was going to be a maybe 50-50, or we were probably the underdog a little bit when you look at it. And that's kind of the reality of it. Not that we accept it, we're doing everything we can to change it, but I think we're about where we should be.
Is Utah State's defense as good as they were last year?
They're capable of being as good as they were last year. They've got some injuries up front on the defensive line. I think there's a good chance they'll get a couple of those guys back. The nose guard and the defensive end. The nose guard's really a good player, kid who transferred from Arizona State. I think they'll get both those guys back. They're totally capable of being that. They've given up some yards rushing, but Brian Hills, he's rushed for a lot against everybody. San Diego State's lined up and run it with Pumphrey and 22 and that offensive line, they've lined up and running against a lot of people. So I think yeah, they're totally capable of being as good as they've been. So statistics are deceiving a little bit. It's hard to compare, particularly when you're comparing Brian Hill and those running backs from San Diego State.
Could you talk about Gary Adcock being the semifinalist for the Warfare Award?
Yeah, impressive. I know this has been it's been a frustrating season for him because of the significant injuries that he's had. Both hands. But he's a remarkable kid. He is a remarkable kid, and we couldn't be more proud of him. I think there were, 96 nominees, 93 nominees, and he's one of 8. So it's good for the program, and it's certainly good for him. It's a remarkable family.
Just how beneficial is it you had 3 of the last 4 games at home?
I think it's huge. I think it's big, particularly, the Boise game's going to be an 8:15 game up there, very similar to how we closed the season 2 years ago. I think it's big for us to get back in this stadium. I think it's big, because we will be the underdog, and it's good to have those teams in our stadium.
Coach, I want to ask about Stu Walker passing away yesterday. Just being able to be the voice for as long as he was, and now that he's gone. Just your thoughts on.
Yeah, first of all, I'd probably be hypocritical a little bit if I stood here and acted like I knew him or had a relationship with him. Certainly, Robert Portnoy told me last night about the news. So I think it'd probably be a lot more appropriate hearing from someone that had a personal relationship with him. But I know he was really respected. I knew he loved what he did and had a passion. I know that much about him. So it's a sad day. He was a young guy, 61 years old, I believe. So I'm sorry to hear the news.
Coach, there were a lot of preseason expectations with Jarrell Presley. His last 3 games, 19 yards, 70 yards, 13 yards.
Yeah.
Is there any reason he's underperforming other than the changes in the offensive line you guys have had?
No, I think, again, not excuse, but you asked me the question. He has been dealing with a foot injury that he's had for the last month. And when you look at it, he is limping. I even noticed on practice last week on Wednesday, even after the time off, he's limping. So that is one thing. He has not gotten the ball enough times, and we aren't able to knock people back. So it's kind of a cumulative thing. But his attitude is really good. I think he's hopefully healthier now going into this 4-game stretch, but he still has a little bit of a limp there. So, you're right on with that. You're right on with that. He hasn't been just the explosive, productive guy that any of us hoped going into the season. But he's still in a good place because his attitude is still good.
Coach, going into the stretch, the next 4 games, how crucial is it for our offensive line to make a big play going down?
Offensive line?
Yeah, our offensive line play.
Yeah, again, it's it's Reno playing with a shoulder that he probably shouldn't be playing with, and it's trying to get as much work and as much development as we can, but staying healthy here at the end. It's been a tough coaching situation with the offensive line, and I think we do have a chance to get better. Chris Lewis has gotten some significant work here over the last week or so. Aaron Jenkins is getting better. I think Mahina's played pretty good at times. We've gotten a lot of mileage out of Dylan Romine, a fifth-year guy that really hadn't played much. Oldenkamp, another fifth-year guy that hasn't played much. I'm proud of those guys. In some cases, they've maximized who they are and what they are. In other cases, we need to continue to get better. There's not a simple solution to it right now, but those kids are working their tails off. And, I'm kind of excited to see how they do here down the stretch against some really good defensive linemen. Hopefully we can get better, because that's something we said at the beginning of the season, is I think our offensive line has a chance to get better. And, hopefully we can do that.
Coach, I'm curious to know from your perspective, in a game that ends like the Duke-Miami one, and a play that's missed by the officials at the end of the game that determines the outcome.
Yeah.
Some coaches and other people are saying they should reverse it and give the win to Duke.
It's interesting you bring that up. Robert Portnoy were talking last night at the radio show off air. you know, maybe because it wasn't me, but there's a little bit of a temptation if you're, and I don't know what they would do if you just said, listen, I want to give that game to the opponent. At some point, we watched the tape here, and honestly, we should not have won that game. And if the head coach stepped up and said, listen, they deserve to win that game, I want to give them the game, you know, what would be the outcome of that? You know, but certainly instant replay has helped things. I do think there ought to be a way where you can get the commissioner of the conference, you can get the head of officiating of the conference, and be able to have a conversation that says, listen, we have just watched that replay, and there were 3 blocks in the back that I will stand up on a table here and say they were blocks in the back and they affected the outcome of that play. And that player's knee was down. And we cannot leave this stadium giving it to the team that just happened to being the victor. There ought to be somewhere in our system where just common sense prevails. And nobody leaves that stadium without the right decision being made. Because I know instantaneously you can get the conference commissioner on, you can get the head of officiating. Most places, just like in the Mountain West Conference, they're there in the offices watching those games for some kind of catastrophic type thing that might happen. Well, I kind of put that in that category. So, you know, just from a common sense standpoint, that shouldn't happen. That shouldn't happen when there's conclusive evidence that a team has been wronged. So, you know, I would hope common sense would prevail, and sometimes you go beyond what the written law is and just do the right thing. But with that also comes, you know, issues. So, again, gridlock, right? Gridlock, like in Washington, D.C. At some point, just common sense you'd hope would prevail.
I was talking to Josh Sternquist about the recruiting effort this week. He said that you seem to be in on more talented, bigger, longer, stronger players. Is that accurate, and how do you feel about the way recruiting?
Yeah, I think that's fair. You know, we've again, you know, we're putting a pretty good product out there that people see. You know, we're not that far away. You know, and I do think we have a chance to recruit bigger, stronger, better players. And, you know, again, that's kind of where we are right now. I think we have enough numbers. I really do. I think we have enough numbers, and we're doing those things. We need some difference-making performances, either by developing these players that have been around here more and better and making them better, or we need a couple more guys to come in and get us to that point. So we do have enough guys. We need now just to, you know, make a difference by performance. And that's recruiting, and that's still coaching, and that's been the elusive piece.
With the individual technique of what you talked about, how do you feel Lamar and Austin have developed this?
Not great. Not great. I think both Lamar, Jordan, and Austin Apodaca fall into that category of technique. If you look in the game, we really gave Austin a chance to play the whole game. And they were giving us some things in the run early, and he did okay for what he is. Obviously, you'd like to see Lamar in there in those running plays, the way they played us. But we gave Austin the whole opportunity. He made some throws, but he also had some glitches in there. He had a period in there where he kind of did some things you kind of shook your head about. So Austin didn't play the whole game technique-wise as good as he could have played to help us win. And Lamar still has, to this point, improved technique-wise, but he's not flawless. And that's why we kind of are where we are, honestly. You know, we're not the one thing you go back and you look at Cole, he might not be able to throw that ball, but when he ran the triple, he became at times when he was healthy flawless doing it. Now we have 2 guys that maybe aren't quite that. So we need to tweak a little bit, and we need to give them a chance to do the things that they can really do. But fundamentally and technically, neither one of those guys have been as good as they need to be for an extended period, or we would be better on offense. You know, that's part of the piece of it. And I think that's a great question. You know, it's not just certain positions. It's not just when the defense gives up a big play. It's across the board. We have to be more mature, mentally tougher, and better fundamentally, because there's not much margin for error. And that's what we have to be. You know, we don't have the eraser. If somebody screws up technique-wise, it's going to get exposed. We don't have the player on offense that just runs by everybody. I'm sure Baylor at times, there's some mistakes in there, But that wide receiver, Coleman, he's running down that field, and it really doesn't matter that that tight end dude didn't do what he was supposed to be. You know, we're not there yet, right? So we have to be flawless, and we're not there. We're not doing a good enough job yet to get that done.
Has either Lamar or Austin separated themselves a little bit, or are they same boat?
I don't think so, but I think this became apparent to me, Van, just standing up there at San Jose. Both those players have to play for us to win. Both those players have to play. I don't think either one of them playing every snap is going to be quite what we need, particularly against the defenses we play coming down the stretch here. I think we need the very best of Austin, which we haven't had yet, and we need the very best of Lamar, which we haven't had yet. And both those kids are such good kids, and they're both appreciative to be here, which is very important. That if it's playing them one snap and then the next guy the next snap, if it's playing them by series, I'm really comfortable with doing that, and I'm kind of excited to see it. But the bottom line with me, it became very apparent we need the best of both of those guys. And we can't have one guy standing over there on the sidelines. We need the combination of both of them, and that's what we're going to do, and we're going to turn it into a positive and hopefully cause defensive coordinators some nightmares because they got to prepare for both.
How much of it is just seeing who has the hot hand during the game versus, all week at practice?
Little bit of that. So there's no exact script. It's a little bit of who gives us the best chance in this situation. And if one of them's hot, he gives us the best chance in that situation. It's doable. It's doable. We can make it work, and that's what we have to do.
Have you ever thought, Coach, of when's a good time and bad time as far as letting them know? Like, I don't know when you let Alpanaga know he was going to start, but like if you let somebody know on Monday you're going to be playing, or if you let them know on Friday,
Yeah.
you ever thought about that?
I told our whole team just what I just said right here, Monday morning. Monday morning, I guess we brought him in there at 8 o'clock was the first time back after a couple of days off. I told him just what I said. I said, here's in my gut how I see it. Talked about both players. I talked about our team, and here's what we need to do to win. So there's no real secret to it or all that, mental kind of gymnastics going on. I think honesty, brutal honesty, and just saying how it is. And I guess we'll see if we're right. But I think for us right now, we need both those guys. And both those guys have to play better, too. Henry.
Coach, alluding to what Rick started out with, I understand a little corner of our world, we take care of that, get better, technique and all of that. But in the real depth of the competitive heart of Bob Davie, if it's not too private, with total respect, how badly would you like to lead your team to a bowl game?
Well, I mean, I think that's, again, kind of goes in that common sense category. We've certainly put a lot into this. Not just me. All of us have put a lot into this. And, being totally honest, and I said this last night on the radio. I'm sure all you guys were listening, right? Because I heard those ratings just skyrocketed now. But honestly, Henry, because you get right to the core, man. You get me to say things other guys don't now, But honestly, we're 4-4, and I feel disappointed. We're 2-2 in the league, and I feel disappointed that we're not better. So that's what I feel right now. And I know we got a shot, but I know we have to get better to take advantage of that shot, or we're going to have a hard time winning another game. But I think we're capable of doing it. I think we're in a better position than we've been. So big picture, man, I think it's going in the right direction. But being 4-4 right now, I got a little bit of a flat, kind of disappointed feeling because I think we could be better than we are. And obviously, man, beating Utah State or beating Boise or Colorado State or Air Force, any one of those four is a huge win for us, a huge win. Those are four good teams. So it goes without saying beating two of them is really big, and that's what we're fighting for. Man, we're not conceding anything now. I mean, we're a pesky kind of team right now. We're pesky. We got pretty good schemes. We do some good things, but we're not much more than pesky. We have to become down after down better. And it's still going to take some more building. It's still going to take more player development. It's going to take more mental toughness. We're pesky. We're not good enough right now. And we're going to and I'm not waiting until next year to try to get good enough. We're trying to get good enough right now. So there you have it.
Given that Lamar and Austin are both going to play, how and when do you decide who goes out first, or is that important?
I don't think we've decided yet. If I had to say, well, I know kind of who it would be right now, but I don't think it's that big of a deal. Again, I really don't, who takes the first snap. Because I think they're going to be in there kind of in and out as they go. Is that it, man?
That's it.
All right, guys, thank you.